Hi, I'm Heather Graham, and I was one of the co-hosts for this year's Bouchercon in New Orleans, which was supposed to be, and which we truly had hopes might be until the Delta variant raised its ugly head. And well, first we want to thank the hotel because they are letting us change our contract to Bouchercon 2025. So, and we are hoping to get to 2025 in New Orleans and have the ultimate bash, the best time ever. We're truly sorry that we're not getting to see everyone. We as authors, even those of us who are introverted, tend to love to be together. We miss so many friends. And it's the one thing I think that I'm so grateful for is that we tend to be the most generous group in the world. And when we get together at these conventions, it's wonderful. So I will truly, truly miss not getting to see everyone in person, but also we want everyone to be safe and we want to make sure that we get to see everyone next year in Minneapolis. I've been lucky enough to see most of our country, but I have never gotten to Minneapolis. And so I'm incredibly excited and I'm so looking forward to it and hoping that it is a better year for everyone coming up and that we're all there together next year, happy and healthy and truly excited to finally get to be together at a Bouchercon. It is one of the most giving and generous conferences ever. And so we are looking forward to it. Tonight, however, is In Conversation With. And In Conversation With, we are excited to say, is James Lee Burke and Alafair Burke, who has proven to be an incredible author. They will be introduced to you in further depth by an absolutely incredible woman whose name is Rachel Housel Hall. I hope you will all go to her website because I cannot begin to list her accomplishments. She's an absolutely amazing woman, the kind of writer who started off as a little kid scratching things on pads, went to school, kind of living in the forest, lives in LA, has been noted by the LA Times. She wrote with James Patterson and has been on the New York Times, and her own books, such as And They All Fall Down, have been nominated for just about every award out there, including Anthony's and Lefties and all kinds of awards. She's also been a mentor for many people, and she served on all kinds of boards, including mystery writers. Such a giving human being and also one of the nicest people you could ever possibly meet. So please do look her up and look up her books. I just want to say in closing that tonight is In Conversation With, and you're about to hear more about James Lee Burke and Alafair Burke. I also want to remind you that tomorrow night, please tune in. There are links on the main Bouchercon site, on the Bouchercon 2021 site, because tomorrow night will be the Anthony Awards, and we'd all be so excited for anyone who can attend. Once more, I just want to thank our whole Bouchercon community. It's been a terribly rough year. We were so excited. We had panels for every author who was coming. There were so many things to look forward to. And of course, it's heartbreaking. But again, we want people to be safe. But the entire community has been wonderful in their response, understanding that things happen the way that they do. So a huge thank you to them. And a very special thank you to Mike Bursaw and Connie Perry, who put hours and hours and hours into it. And it's just sad because again, we as authors just truly love to get together. I don't think I know of anything other than fiction writing where you find so many people who are so generous, who share so much, and who are so ready to give their specialties to one another. So again, let's see, don't forget Bouchercon in New Orleans 2025, Bouchercon Part 2. We are promising to hopefully make it one of the best bashes that New Orleans has ever seen. And New Orleans is known for good bashes. So anyway, also looking forward to seeing you in Minneapolis. And please remember to tune into the Anthony Awards tomorrow night. And again, when you have a chance, please do look up Rachel Housel Hall because this woman is amazing. So thank you guys so much. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I hope you are too. Thank you.
Hi, thanks Heather for everything. So we all dream about being prolific writers. Well, Alafair Burke and her father, James Lee Burke, are the embodiments of prolific. The current president of Mystery Writers of America, Alifair is the author of 18 novels, including 7 collaborations with Miss Mystery Writer herself, Mary Higgins Clark. Alifair's standalone novels and short stories have been praised by reviewers, booksellers, and readers around the world. Each is the epitome of twisty and complex, and all bring Alafair's deep set sense of social justice, appreciation for popular culture, love of animals, and humor to the page. A graduate of Reed College and Stanford Law School, she clerked for a judge on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, yay, before serving as a deputy district attorney in Portland, Oregon, where she specialized in domestic violence offenses and also served as a liaison to the police department. James Lee Burke is the author of I counted, and I'm sure he started and finished a novel while I logged on to Zoom. I counted 82 novels, oh my God. His first in 1965, and what is the math on that? 5 books a year or something like that? Mr. Burke has been a Brett Leaf Fellow and Guggenheim Fellow, and has been awarded 2 Edgar Awards for Best Novel, as well as the Grand Master Award by the Mystery Writers of America. His novel, Two for Texas, was adapted by TNT for television, and Heaven's Prisoners and In the Electric Mist were theatrical releases. The incredibly popular Robichaux series has been translated into almost every language in the world. Mic drops all over the place, right? Please join me in welcoming critically acclaimed novelists Alafair Burke and James Lee Burke.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, how you doing there? You look
Good.
familiar.
Now that people can see us side by side, you can tell we look exactly alike. If my father were an Asian woman, he would look just like me. So thank you very much, Rachel and Mike, for those nice words. Thank you all for watching. We were supposed to be doing this in New Orleans, and we all can't wait to be in person again, but alas, it's going to have to wait another year, I guess. But here we are remotely celebrating and talking today about your new book, Dad, Another Kind of Eden. Which,
well, thank you.
Congratulations. So happy public. So everybody always wants to know, is it a Robichaux book? Is it a Holland book? We've got, who's our protagonist this time?
Well, it's a Holland book, if we have to categorize it. The main character, the narrator, is Aaron Holland Broussard, whom we first meet in the novel The Jealous Kind.
And it's set in 1962, but in a lot of ways, correct, it's really about today, isn't it?
That is correct. So 1962 is the portal. That's what I think of as the portal anyway, into the era in which we now live. But it's quite different from the era in which I grew up. I was born in the Depression.
Why did you choose 1962?
It was the year of the Cuban Missile Crisis. We went right to the edge of nuclear annihilation. It's not hyperbole. John Kennedy, after the dangerous hours had passed, 3 weeks actually had passed, he addressed the American nation and he said, victory would have been ashes in our mouths. And then he went on and said, within a month after a thermonuclear exchange with the Soviet Union, 185 million Americans would have perished. And the attrition around the globe would have been similar.
And Aaron is an aspiring novelist. He's traveling, he's taking a lot of different jobs. How much of that's your story as well?
The crummy employment history, yes.
I was like, I heard of a guy who took a lot of really bad jobs and moved around a lot when he was writing books. It's like, are you my father, Aaron? What are some of the jobs you had?
Oh, geez. The good ones. Oh, I don't know. Golly, Moses. As you know, you were there, you know,
For some of it.
some of those years. But my wife and I and our kids moved and worked everywhere between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, Florida to California, every place in between, and did every kind of job in between. We did many kind. My wife Pearl, who was a waitress. I drove a truck. We worked on Skid Row in Los Angeles. I was a pipeliner in Texas, surveyor in Colorado. Oh, Lordy, I taught 4 universities and 1 junior college. I worked for the U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Job Corps, State Employment Agency of Louisiana. Those were the good ones.
Nowadays, people put their resumes on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn profile would be 100 pages long. Do you think you could do any of those jobs now?
I don't know. I know that had it not been for the Dave Rover Show series, I would be throwing a morning paper out. No question about that. Dave Rover Show.
I say all the time, I think I'm basically unemployable at a real job anymore.
Yeah.
You use 1962 as this portal and kind of explore all kinds of things that are so relevant today, but a lot of them having to do with the labor movement. How does that play into the novel?
Yes, it deals in part with migrant workers. In fact, actually, that's the backdrop of the book. The main character feels like he has walked into Eden. There, just like it was when the earth is brand new. He climbed out of a freight car in Denver, caught a bus down to Trinidad, and went to work on this corporate farm owned by a family named the Lowrys. Jude Lowry is the name of the owner, and his Irish wife, who created what seems to be heaven on earth. But as we discover, these people who come from Massachusetts, and I won't say more about that tie because it will undo the story for the reader. The suspense will be taken out of the story, but it's really a morality tale. It also has to do with the migrant workers who were organizing under Cesar Chavez. It deals with real people. One of my favorite characters is one of the farm workers named Cotton Williams. And
I'm going to ask you, where do you come up with these names? You've got Spud and Cotton in there.
Well, those are Aaron's best friends. They work with him on the farm. And Cotton was based on a man I worked with in Colorado, same year, 1962. He was a paratrooper, and he told me this story, and it's the perfect story. The story that all these years I never heard anyone else tell. He said when his outfit moved into Rome in 43, the Germans retreated north into the Po Valley. But he said some Waffen SS went down into the catacombs, and these GIs had to dig them out. And he said there was not just one level in the catacombs, there were 3 levels. And I went later to the catacombs in 59, and his story was true, at least about the catacombs. Anyway, my friend, the man I worked with, Cotton Williams in the book, with these GIs went after the Waffen SS and chased them underneath the city of Rome through a tunnel that went all the way to the obelisk in front of the Vatican. And he said that was the room in which supposedly were the coffins of St. Paul and St. Peter. And that's where these GIs had this firefight with these Nazis. The Waffen SS were not just German soldiers. These guys were absolute evil. And Cotton Williams tells Aaron what he did. He said he had his grease gun, that's, paratroopers folding a machine gun. And he said he killed every one of those bastards. And in other words, down here below the city of Rome, where on the top side, people are celebrating the liberation, here are these GIs from farmlands in Iowa and Ohio or the streets of New York, 19, 20, 21 years old, fighting against people who are arguably the most evil on earth. Albert Camus said it. No one would ever surpass in terms of evil the Nazis. It's no way to be worse than the kind of people they were. So anyway, that's part of the story. The struggle between good and evil. And here's Cotton Williams still out here picking the white, they call it picking the white man's cotton. That means that, I don't want to get into all that.
Right.
What that means down south is, doesn't matter whether you're white or black or tan, you're still working for Whitey up there in the big house.
Yeah. The man. Cotton reads comic books. And it dawned on me, why do I think, did you used to read comic books? Did I make that up?
Yeah. No.
Did you have a favorite
comic books?
Yeah, I kind of like stirred loose some old memory on my, we haven't lived under the same roof for a long time, but like I just remember being a kid and you had comic books. Did you have a favorite comic book?
Well, they're called illustrated classic comic books, and they were the graphic translation of the great classics into pictures. And kids used to read them. And I certainly did, and you little guys did when you all were small. But Cotton Williams is, in other words, really a chivalric figure. That's the point of the story, that the most noble of people sometimes have the most humble origins.
Yeah.
That he's a heroic man. He only has one eye. One eye looks like the skin of a hard-boiled egg. And when Aaron looks in his face, it's though he's looking at two people, a living eye and a dead eye. But in other words, that Cotton has horrible memories about the war, but he does not regret doing what he had to do underneath the catacombs. But I told you I went there myself, so it was exactly as the character described it.
Yeah. Before we close the loop on the labor movement and organizing part of the book, but there's the Ludlow Massacre plays into this book, and I think you've written about that before. What is it about that event that you keep coming back to?
Okay, it occurred in 1914, about 15 miles or so northwest of Trinidad. This is the site of the Ludlow Massacre, and the miners went on strike, and the strike was broken by the Colorado National Guard, I guess, a state militia, and also the John D. Rockefeller's goons. And they killed a number of people, and 11 of them were women and children in a cellar. They set fire, the goons set fire to a tent above the cellar, and I think 3 women and 8 children died of the smoke. And I've been down in that cellar, and your mother and I, the first time we saw it, what year was it? I don't remember, but we always stopped there, and there was a door down that was horizontally implanted in the ground, and you could pull it up and go down the stairs into that cellar. There was no monument to mark what occurred there. And I put that information in my book, Cimarron Rose. And about 2 years later, the state of Colorado created, or maybe the United Mine Workers, built this monument. I always hoped that maybe my book influenced somebody to do that, but it doesn't matter. It got done.
That's always a good feeling. You hear from readers, your readers like adore you. You're probably aware of that, but and I hope you don't mind me saying this. I know a lot of people reach out to you, particularly about your Robichaux character and his relationship to sobriety, and he's in Alcoholics Anonymous. But how does that make you feel, like when people reach out to you and say that your books are sort of a form of almost a form of rehab for them?
Well, it's given
it kind of takes
the
anonymous out of it, is what I'm saying. You kind of let that be known.
Well, it gives me a great sense of personal reward, and to be able to feel, I mean, when people come to you and they say sincerely, your work helped me when I was having a bad time. And I've had many people say that, but I also know that it's the principle that saved them from an addiction or from doing a harm to themselves. It's not an individual. It's always the principle, not the personality involved. The principle is, it's my feeling that if you stay with the principle, you don't have to worry about personal problems.
Those are some of my favorite conversations. When we go back to in person, my favorite thing at Bouchercon is people will come up to me and say, I've never read your books, but please tell your father how much I love his books. And I'm like, he's got a Facebook page.
Oh,
Go find it.
Yeah, that's in the same category with my wife loves your material. What's that guy you write about? I wouldn't buy it myself at gunpoint, but boy, my wife really likes it.
My late mother-in-law, Ellie Hatcher, my character is named after her. She told Sean, she always had a way of, there was always sort of a back, there was an underside to every comment. And she told Sean, tell Alifair, everybody, she was in assisted living, tell Alifair, everybody here reads her books. They say they're really good if you like that kind of thing. I'm like, thanks, Mom.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. Humility always finds us.
The other thing I wanted, the book is very much also a love story, right? We've been talking about all the history in it, but what do you, I don't think of your other books as, what was it about this book? Why did you decide that you wanted to, it's got a little more of a romantic angle and a love story in it, more than some of the other books do? Who's Joanne, I guess? What is it about her that Aaron likes so much?
She's a great character. She's 19 years old. She's a Texas girl whose father was a blind preacher. He was born blind and was lost during a cyclone. He was lifted out of a storm cellar by the funnel of the tornado. But anyway, at age 19, she's trying to work as a waitress in a Mexican restaurant in Trinidad, Colorado, and to be a painter. And she has enormous talent, but she's obsessed with the story of the children who died in the cellar. And she has to give them voice. And she paints this oil painting of the children inside the flames. And she falls under the sway of a terrible man on the faculty there at the junior college in Trinidad. And he's trying to, in effect, take over her soul. He's a iniquitous person. And we also meet some people who are emblematic of the beginnings of the uh, drug culture, because it was in the early 60s that suddenly the middle class family was discovering that their children were drug addicts. And the transition took only a very few years, and we're still in it. I mean, if someone, I remember this was a DEA person was talking somewhere, it's in a conversation, when he said, if there was any drug war, we've already lost it. We've subsumed it. It's just kind of like AIDS. We subsumed it.
Yeah. You mentioned that these kids kind of fall under the spell of this charismatic professor. You spent several years in academia. I'm still in academia. Was that based on any of your experience as a faculty member?
Oh, he's probably an aggregate of it's not because he's an academic. He's just one of those people who's a manipulator. He's a manipulator. Manipulators are very good at what they do. They're narcissists, and as such, they're not capable of compassion. He's a terrible guy. Aaron hates his guts.
It's hard to.
He wants to blow the guy out of his socks.
When you know somebody well, you can also, when you read their books, you can kind of find out who the. It's like, oh, interesting that this not great guy happens to be a professor. Erin is a friend of ours, and she does the social media for us. She wrote down, we got some reader questions from people that I wanted to do before we say goodbye to everybody. So one of the questions is, how did Alafair Robichaux become a character in the Robichaux books? I know the answer, obviously, but a lot of people don't. How did my name wind up in your books?
I put it there, but it just seemed it's Alifair appears in the second book of the Robichaux series, Heaven's Prisoners, and I don't know why. It just seemed that Alifair was in the world, the imaginary world from which my work is written. Alifair was Dave Robichaux's daughter. And of course, the story of Heaven's Prisoners is about illegal immigration. In this case, the Alifair who comes into Dave's life is a little girl escaping from El Salvador, and he rescues her from a crashed plane. A Maryknoll missionary was flying the plane, and it goes down in Vermilion Bay. And Dave Robichaux is able to save the child, and she forever becomes the love of his life.
So from my perspective, I was in college when you wrote that book, and it was already done, I think. And you said, oh, I named this little girl a character named Alifair. Is that okay with you? You did actually ask my permission. And, I figured one book or whatever. I was like, and I said, I remember asking you, like, does she live? And you said, yes. I said, that's fine. I don't care. I didn't realize that. So that was in '88. So all these years later, I didn't realize that it would mean that people would ask me if I was adopted. Do I have a three-legged raccoon? I think it's if you put my name in and Google fills in the questions for you, people actually do Google, is Alafair Burke adopted? So no, I am not adopted. The name goes on. So I do like it that people think I'm a lot younger than I am based on that, though. So that's good. I know you don't. People of course want to know if do you know what your next book is what's the next book?
I've already written it. It's the sequel to Another Kind of Eden. Pardon me. Excuse me. I ate a cough drop. Golly Moses. It's like a
Is it lodged in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The sequel is titled Every Cloak Every cloak rolled in blood. The title is out of the Bible, and it's a sequel. It stands on its own, as does Another Kind of Eden, but it is narrated by Aaron Holland Broussard once again, except the year is 2021 or 22. Yeah, it's quite a book.
I'm trying not to resent you right now that you already have your book's just out and you have another one already finished, which has always been my goal, and I never quite managed to do it. So I think you and I spent last year in completely different ways. Yes, last year was hard for everybody, but it was a hard year for our family. And I know that I wasn't able to write. I went the longest period I've ever gone since I started writing, at least, without writing. I was just sitting on the TV watching TV constantly. But you kept your schedule, didn't you? Did you keep your writing schedule for the most part?
Well, yes, I did. We had a loss, of course, in our family, and it was a very difficult time, and it still is. It's a kind of loss that the narrator actually, Aaron Holland Broussard says, the goal is that you live with a scar rather than a wound, but it's the scar that is permanent. And that's the way certain things are. But, we have a fine family. And but the book that I wrote it's fantasy, actually, but it I think is a true portrayal of what families go through when they have certain kind of losses. But anyway, we always, we in effect, are imbued with the principle. The principle is that you have to have faith. You have to have faith. And as Dave Robichaux says, or someone tells it, that faith is to accept the belief of other people when they tell you you're a good person, you're brave, you're above the fray. To accept the people's, in effect, blessing of what they see, that form of virtue they see in a person who's going through a bad time. And so I'm in my 9th decade now, but which really means what? And everyone my age knows this. We don't find the answer to the great mysteries. We never will understand the great mysteries. But I still feel as a believer that there's another world right at the end of our fingertips. And I tried to show that in this book, Another Garden of Eden, and the sequel as well. But it's a metaphor, of course, for other things. And I talk about my father sometimes. He had an extraordinary view of reality. He did not believe that history or time was sequential. He believed that all events happened simultaneously, the past, the present, and the future. He used to say, the unborn are not unborn. They're standing looking at us now. And for that reason, we have to be good stewards of the earth because they own it as much as we do. But he went on to add that in all probability, you cannot measure time because time is nothing more than a dream inside the mind of God. And I asked him once, a little later, about the nature of God. I'll never forget his answer. There are only two things you have to remember about the nature of God. Number one, he has a sense of humor. Number two, he is a gentleman, and as such, he always keeps his word.
I wish I had known him, all the stories that you tell about him.
He had this lovely accent. He had an accent, it's called plantation English. It's the same as William Faulkner, Robert Penn Warren, Flannery O'Connor. It's called plantation anyway. But he could read the phone book and it would sound like a Petrarchan sonnet.
I know somebody like that.
He was an elitist too. I used to always say for my father, the man in the street is the man in the gutter. He was an egalitarian who despised what he called the mass mind, the man in the gutter, the mass mind. Oh, jeez.
Didn't he used to say if everybody agrees with it, it's probably wrong, something like that?
Always, yeah. Right, that was one of them. Everybody agrees on it. He said, "Be assured, it's wrong." And
I remember you
say,
telling me that when I was a kid. I was like, "Whoa, you just blew my mind."
and then he said, "If you hear everyone walking in unison, run." That was another one. But my favorite was flee approval and seek excoriation. How about that?
I think this explains exactly why I am the way I am. I'm going to tell people my father's probably the only person who raised me to like be rebellious. I think you were most proud of me when teachers were trying to kick me out of school. You'd show up to defend me and just make things worse, the two of us battling the system. Well, this has been very fun. I wish we were in New Orleans doing it, but we're still in our houses. Well, I'll talk to you later about it. Usually when we FaceTime, we're talking about COVID rates and are you going outside and where are you getting food? So I'll talk to you about that later so we don't bore people, but I think they're about to give out the Anthony Awards. So that'll be exciting.
Really?
Yeah. So that follows up.
Yeah.
So there are people waiting to find out if they won awards or not. So we should probably wrap it up. But congratulations, Dad. Enjoy the rest of your virtual book tour. I know you've got a lot of events lined up. But
it'd be great when we get past the pandemic and we meet.
Yeah.
Crime and mystery meetings or conventions are always great fun because people don't take themselves seriously. They take their art seriously, but they don't take themselves seriously. They're very humble people. It's always fun. It's always fun to be there. Yeah.
So we'll be back soon, but okay. Bye, everyone.
Okay. See you later.
Thank you so much for joining us for In Conversation with the incredible Burke duo, both incredible writers all on their own. And it was great to get to see something, to see somebody, to find out something. So thank you for joining us. And please don't forget, the Anthonys will be tomorrow night, same link, same YouTube channel. And we would love to have everyone join us for the Anthony Awards tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again. And I miss everyone. And I'm looking so forward to Minneapolis.